A reflection of love. Juliet sat quietly on the old wooden bench, watching the sun slowly set beyond the hills. The golden light bathed the small house in a soft glow, but it did little to ease the storm of emotions that churned inside her. Her heart ached, not for any reason that anyone could understand, but for a love that was forbidden, unspoken, and trapped within the walls of her own heart. It was a love that she could not show, could not speak of, because it was a love for her son, Dave. As she sat there, a sense of loneliness washed over her. It had always been her and Dave. From the day he was born, she had devoted her life to him. She was a single mother, raising him on her own after his father had left them when Dave was just a baby. There had been no one else in her life. No romantic relationships, no one to share the burden of parenting. It had always been just the two of them, and in a way, she had grown used to it. She had learned to love him with a kind of fierce devotion that only a mother could understand. But as Dave grew older, something had shifted. Something inside Juliet had begun to change, though she could not explain it. It was as if a bond, deeper and more intense than the typical mother-son relationship, had formed between them. Juliet would catch herself watching him more often than she should, lingering on his smile, the way his eyes sparkled when he laughed, the way he moved through the world with such confidence despite his young age. There were moments when she felt a longing in her chest that she didn't know how to name. It wasn't the longing of a mother for her child, it was something else, something darker, more complicated. But no matter how much she tried to suppress it, the feeling persisted. The pain of it, the guilt of it, the confusion, it all weighed heavily on her. She loved him, yes, but it was a love that was wrong. She could not allow herself to feel this way. She was his mother, after all. Society's rules were clear, a mother should love her son in a pure, selfless way. She had to protect him, guide him, help him grow into the man he was meant to be. That was her role. That was her purpose. So, she hid her feelings. She pretended. She buried the ache deep inside and wore a mask of calm, telling herself that everything was as it should be. But as time went on, the ache grew harder to ignore. It was only when Dave started showing interest in other girls that Juliet's heart truly broke. It was a quiet day, like any other, when she saw him talking to a girl from school, a pretty, bright-eyed girl who seemed to capture his attention in a way that Juliet never could. Juliet stood in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with the dishes, but her eyes kept darting toward the window, watching them. She saw the way Dave smiled at the girl, the way his eyes softened when she spoke. Juliet could feel the sharp sting of jealousy in her chest. It was as if a part of her was being ripped away, watching her son connect with someone else. She knew she had no right to feel that way. She was his mother. She was supposed to encourage his relationships, to let him go, to watch him grow and become his own person. But it was hard. It was so hard. She gripped the edge of the sink, trying to steady herself. The jealousy bubbled up inside her, threatening to spill over, but she forced herself to push it down. It was a cruel feeling, a selfish one, and she hated herself for it. She wanted to protect him, to keep him close, to hold him in a way that was not possible, not right. But he was growing up. He was no longer the little boy who needed her for everything. He was becoming a man, and the world was opening up for him. It was something she had known, but it was something she had not been ready to face. The next day, Juliet noticed the girl again. Her name was Emily, and she had a way of laughing that made Dave smile in a way that was so different from when he smiled at her. It was the kind of smile that belonged to someone else, to a girl, not a mother. And Juliet felt that familiar pang in her chest again, that jealousy, that unspoken longing for something she knew she could never have. She had to let him go, she told herself. She had to. But as the days went on, the pain became unbearable. Juliet found herself watching Dave and Emily from afar, unable to tear her eyes away. She saw the way they spent more time together, the way they shared secrets and laughter. It made her feel small, insignificant. Her heart ached, and she could feel the tears welling up, but she quickly blinked them away, swallowing her sorrow. She couldn't let him see her weakness. He couldn't know how deeply this hurt her. It was late one evening when Juliet finally broke. Dave had gone out with Emily and a few of their friends, and Juliet was left alone in the house. The silence was deafening. She sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where Dave usually sat. She had always known this day would come, the day when he would no longer need her in the same way. But she wasn't ready. She wasn't ready to share him with anyone else. She clutched the throw pillow to her chest, burying her face in it as she cried. She had given everything to him, sacrificed so much, and yet she was losing him to someone else. She knew it was the natural order of things. It was what she had raised him to do. To grow, to love, to find someone who would be there for him in ways she couldn't. But it didn't make it hurt any less. Juliet wept for the love she could not have. She wept for the pieces of her heart that had shattered as she watched him slip further away from her, into the arms of someone else. She wept for the love that had always been so pure, so unselfish, but now felt tainted, darkened by the jealousy that consumed her. The door creaked open, and Juliet quickly wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. Dave entered the house, looking tired but happy. He smiled at her, and for a moment, it felt like nothing had changed. She could still see the little boy in him, the one who had once looked up at her with wide eyes, full of wonder. But that boy was slipping away, and the man he was becoming was slowly taking his place. "Mom, I'm back," Dave said, his voice light and carefree. "Emily invited me to go out with her and some friends next weekend. Is that okay?" Juliet forced a smile, nodding. "Of course, Dave. You should go. Have fun." As he went upstairs to his room, Juliet sat back, feeling the weight of her emotions pressing down on her chest. She could never tell him how she felt, how much it hurt to see him with someone else, to feel as if she were losing him. She could never tell him how her heart ached every time he smiled at Emily, every time he spoke about her. But in that moment, as Juliet sat in the silence of their home, she understood something she hadn't before. Love, real love, was not about holding on. It wasn't about keeping someone close for your own selfish reasons. It was about letting them go, watching them grow, and supporting them as they found their own way in the world. It was about the power of embrace, even if that embrace meant letting them go with a heart full of sorrow. And so, Juliet made a promise to herself that night. She would let Dave go. She would support him in everything he did, even if it broke her heart. She would continue to love him, not as a mother who needed him, but as a mother who wanted the best for him, no matter how much it hurt. The next day, she stood at the window, watching as Dave and Emily walked down the path toward the bus stop. She smiled through her tears, silently whispering a prayer for his happiness. And for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace.